So we support women experiencing mental health challenges, substance use, disabilities, and women who have been incarcerated. Our hope is that with each purchase, one is inspired by the story the jewelry represents. As each piece of jewelry is created, a story is told. As each piece is purchased, an individual story is heard. And as each piece is worn, a story is being shared. And that is the true essence of the I Am Love Project.
Welcome to Connect the Dots, where each episode is a fun and exciting journey into the minds of today's most passionate entrepreneurs, thinkers, and creators. My name is Donovan Robinson, and I will be your host as we discover what it is to be an entrepreneur, what inspires them, what drives them, and what scares the out of them. We're talking to entrepreneurs and business owners who've been where you are, who are where you are, who have no clue where they are. But they know that living a life of passion and purpose is the only way to do it. Each journey we look at is as unique as the individual, and hopefully, by tracing these paths, we help connect the dots for you. Connect the Dots, a podcast with entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. A restaurant owner turned philanthropist who created a craft jewelry brand that empowers women facing economic challenges is making a huge impact in Manitoba. But her work is not just being heard within the province's borders, her accolades are getting noticed across Canada and beyond. Amy Tung started I Am Love Project to become a catalyst for change and create opportunities for others. Her mission is to continuously encourage self-love. Through lived experiences, Amy aims to empower those around her. A recipient of the Manitoba Honor 150 Medal, selected as the 2018 CBC Manitoba Future 40, named a Winnipeg Blue Bombers Community Hero, a finalist of Future Leaders of Manitoba in 2019, and raised more than $45,000 in her first 18 months of launching the business after starting with nothing. And Amy has done all of this as a solo mom. I had the privilege of sitting down with Amy to connect the dots in her journey from dim sum to discovering her passion and the challenges along the way. I do want to warn listeners that some of the content may be triggering, containing stories of mental health issues and references to stories about some of the women Amy supports that include a mention of sexual assault and trauma. So you're the founder of I Am Love Project, which you created this initiative to connect with the community and raise money to support women's nonprofits. You have a jewelry brand, which came out of the I Am Love Project initiatives, if I'm correct. And we will definitely talk more about all of that this throughout the podcast. But something I read that is you owned a restaurant here in Winnipeg. Is that true?
That's funny. Yes, that did happen. Actually, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. So all family members, aunts and uncles, they're in the hospitality industry. So I did grow up. I've been working at the restaurant since I was 12 years old, and grew up there essentially every holiday, every summer break. I was there, and it's in the heart of Chinatown. So it's called Dim Sum Garden, which we sold the land and we sold the business, and parents are fully retired. And yeah, that was another entrepreneurial venture.
Well, I read about the restaurant. I didn't know what it was, but that place was a staple for me while I was in college.
No way, really?
I went there. That was my favorite. I went there all the time.
It's still around. So when we had it, it's on Rupert. So we've had it for about 25 years. So then I was in Hong Kong. I moved back. That's when we got into a new business venture where my brother and I and another couple, we decided to revamp it and do something kind of Asian fusion. That was kind of the next trend that was popping up. And so we did do that. We renovated and we called it Yeah Dim Sum. Then that lasted for about 2 years, and then we decided to sell because my brother was gonna go move to Hong Kong, and the other couple they decided to start up their own Japanese restaurant. So that was a lot of fun. So yes, hospitality industry, customer service. What are your favorite dishes?
You know what? The shark fin, like the not the real shark fin, but like that one I used to get all the time. But I think just the the probably the typical dumpling, like the shrimp
Yeah.
dumpling, was probably my go-to.
Yes.
But yeah, it was all so good. Yeah.
Interesting that it's shark fin. I always get asked the question, so is it like really the shark fin? And I have to explain like, no, so that's kind of like the direct translation from Chinese. So we call it shark fin dumpling. I have PTSD with that because I remember we were short in staff and I was always my dad always tasked me to make the shark fin dumplings because I was really quick at it. I guess I was always like artistic and I'm just like, oh, it's like kind of origami to me. And I just speed through it.
Do you think making those dumplings and doing that actually led to making jewelry? Does it or helped you in that process?
I think there's definitely, and that's the thing that I always reflected back. I'm like, how did I never envisioned myself going into business. I, after we sold the restaurant, I'm like, I never want to go back into business. There was no work life balance. Like our family never took like holidays. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Being a single mom, I'm not willing to give up that time. And some way, somehow, I came back to owning something, a business where it's thriving and taking off, and it's been, I would say, a little bit challenging. And when I think back, I'm like, okay, well, I worked retail, which ties into the visual merchandising, product assortment, the buying, and then I was in the hospitality, which really helped with the budgeting, the food costs. I can really translate it into today, like everyday use with I Am Love. So I wouldn't say that maybe I'm crafty with my hands. I'm willing to explore, but I don't think my strength lies in making things. I'm the idea person. I love where, hey, I have this idea and let's pull people together and create this, make it into something.
Well, on your website, you tell your story, but you also tell the stories of others. How important is it to tell your story, not only for yourself, but also to give others the confidence to tell theirs? Because I know telling our story is therapeutic in many ways, but also you're telling your story in hopes that other people will share theirs or maybe get the same feelings that you get from telling your story.
I struggled telling my story in the beginning, and that's why we change and we pivot. I do find that now, even though I don't want to share my story as often, and I don't share my story to the full extent of what it truly is. The details are left out. The minute lived experience in terms of, okay, the racism, the workplace, the relationships, and all those challenging mental health dark moments, I've left it out. I am more compelled to do so now as to represent the women that we serve, to represent the women that has been helping us and sharing, having the courage to share their story. And I feel that that's kind of the driving force for me to share a little bit here and there. So now we have something called the Real Talks on our social media, and that's where I answer a question, a personal question, in hopes that it really brings the courage and the strength to other women to share. We need to hear the stories. Life is not just, I wanted to say shits and giggles every day. I don't know if we can use that, but it's not always juicy. There are many moments where we are down, where we are sad, and that's really important to share, to make life real, because that's life.
And there's something very positive that happens when you're able to share pain or talk about struggles or trauma with others, and people who've gone through similar things or feeling the same way you are. But it's not easy to talk about, and that's what you said. It isn't easy. Do you still find it sometimes hard to open up, or once you've started, like now, is it just a lot easier to do that because you realize it is good to share, and it is making a difference.
Definitely. For me, sharing now is much more easier, and I do find it's healing. And there, I see the impact. I see that more women are on our website and wanting to support and asking more questions about it. Anytime we're on TV, I get so many emails. Hey, I appreciate the work that you're doing. Oh, I hear you. I resonate with that immensely. I'm a single mom too, and I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm on disability, EIA, and I'm reluctant to earn more. I'm scared to dabble into the workplace. And so, through sharing the story, the impact that we gain is women able to build the confidence for them to share and perhaps explore employment opportunities. And that's exactly what we do. We support women, we help them build the confidence to get back into the workplace so they can come off of EIA and be financially secure.
You're quite open with your story, and I know you said you leave out some of the details, but you're pretty open with your story and what I've read and what I've researched with my crack team of myself. But but you made a comment where when you were younger you felt small growing up, and I wonder, when you felt small when you were younger, and this was the case, was this an internal feeling? Because I see you as, you're a presence, you exude confidence, and you're like, I can't envision you not being this way. And so has that come with maybe, knowing that you have a purpose, and or were you always kind of exuding this confidence, but maybe inside didn't feel that way? Or did something change?
I guess I'm really great at suppressing my emotions. And that's interesting that you say that. Actually, a lot of people that I come across and like gotten to know me or first impressions, they do say they have similar sentiments as you. Do I try to show up with confidence? I do. But internally, yeah, I don't feel that all the time. We have the imposter syndrome, or those thoughts and feelings come back where you feel like you're not worthy enough. Am I saying the right thing? And that stems from the little triggers or the little stories that I have told myself that's continuously being validated by society, such as, so English is not my first language, I wouldn't say. I would say Cantonese is my first language. Then I was in French immersion my entire life. So having to transition from grade 12 to English, no, grade 10 to English, I knew that my grammar was not going to be off. And that's validated through stories. And I remember this I had a girlfriend, and this is when I first started I Am Love. She never liked my posts. None of the I Am Love stuff. She never would hit the like button, and she would never share it. And I finally had the conversation with her. I'm like, hey, so I've been doing this for like about a year. I noticed that like we have conversations about it, but you never like my stuff. Can you tell me more about that? And so she shared that, hey, Amy, if you're going to be putting information out and this is your passion, this is what you want to do, you need to check your grammar. And that's why I'm not liking your stuff. And I remember that because I'm like, oh my goodness, now I'm scared, and I have been scared to be posting. I'm like constantly checking, okay, well, is this a spelling error? Do I say this right? And I think that kind of dims my confidence sometimes when I present myself. I'm like, am I saying the right thing? I don't know all the catchy phrases, slogan, any of that stuff growing up, and that has an impact. And it lingers, and as things continues to happen, that story becomes validated and it becomes stronger where you do believe it.
But well, English is my first language, and I have the same feelings a lot, because
Yeah.
my brain goes faster than I can actually. It goes faster than I'm writing, so I do make careless mistakes a lot, and then it does come out, and I always feel like, am I just terrible at writing, or
Yeah,
those things. So I can relate on that side, where it's like it does kill your confidence.
for sure. And then you have the encouraging friends who are like, hey, don't, who cares about that? Just put it out. That's already taking the first step. And it's like, who do you believe?
Well, I talked about this with a few other people, but it was a podcast I listened to with Jewel, and so she makes a comment, and this is not word for word, but she says it's usually the people that really gone through a lot of challenges and struggles in life that really want to help others the most, and usually it's the challenges or struggles that they went through, and they want to make sure other people don't go through that, or they can relate. So it's like I want to help other people. Do you find that a very true statement?
100%. This is why the why statement is so important. And this is essentially the why I am love manifested to what it is today. It is based on my lived experiences. It's based on being of color, being women, um, being a single mom, not having the spousal support or child support, having to move back and starting brand new. It was challenging. The supports weren't there. What were you supposed to do? And I remember having to live off of one box of mac and cheese, and that was lunch and dinner. So then Alyssa gets everything, my daughter, that she gets like the nutrition, the good meals, the clothes that she needs. And I don't want anyone to feel like that.
The reason it stood out for me with you was you this is a quote from you, and I thought that really aligned with that when you said when one person is healthy and gets to share their story and their healing journey with someone who is going through the same thing, that's when the chain of love begins. And I think that is exactly what Jewel, the songwriter, was basically saying. I'm not saying we're lucky that we've gone through things, but I think it's a bit of a blessing that we can understand it. I think we don't want to have to go through things, but now we can help make sure that doesn't happen, or at least comfort people who might have. So
Yeah, in a world where there's so much chaos right now, we are seeking for that love and connection. And by sharing the vulnerability and being raw, we're able to establish that, right? Even with being here today, there was some sort of connection. I know when we first talked about it, it was like, I'm doing this podcast, ADHD. I'm like, oh, mental health. Yes, let's connect and let's explore. We want that, right? We find comfort in that, and they're definitely healing in that, being able to be like, I'm not the only one out there. There are so many more people out there who have been diagnosed with ADHD, or who are struggling with their mental health, depression, and are on medication. But that doesn't mean that we're paralyzed. We can still function, but we just have to figure out a way and how to cope. How do you make it a strength base? And that's what we do, where we take on the strength base. When we onboard someone new, we ask about, hey, what are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What do you really want to do? And most importantly, tell me what you're great at. And that's what we're gonna really focus on, and not your areas of opportunities and your the deficits, where we typically hear in the workplace, right? Hey, Donovan, you need to work on your communication, otherwise you're unable to do X, Y, and Z. But we take the strength base and then we allocate work. Hey, does this work for you? Obviously, if you're shy, you're introverted, we're not going to put you into like a market setting where you have to sell, right? And I think that's where we really, really shine, where people feel valued for their skill set. And that's where confidence starts to build.
we will be back right after this short break. There is a new space downtown in the heart of Winnipeg in the Richardson Concourse. It's called Pop. Pop emerged from a vision to nurture a dynamic community for entrepreneurs, artisans, creatives, and passionate individuals, very much like this podcast. Each month, new vendors. And if you're a vendor, a creative, or a passionate entrepreneur and you want to showcase your product, check us out. We got space for you. And hey, you can move those old, boring meetings into a really cool, unique space. It's a place to get inspired and be creative. Pop has a craft corner. You can make t-shirts, make mugs for your friends. Hey, there's even a space to trade all of that hobby stuff that you never used, maybe for a new hobby that you want to try out without wasting all that money. Pop is located at 1 Lombard Avenue in the Richardson Center in the lower level, right below the escalators. I hope to see you soon. You can find Pop on Instagram at pop.collab. You share a lot of people's stories, and I know obviously you have their consent and it's what they want to share. But when you get to hear these stories and having a platform for that, that's going to feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's but here we have so many great stories. The last 2 years, we supported over 33 women re-entering the workplace. And where we get the most stories is through our affirmation necklaces. So they all embody a personal recovery story of women in Winnipeg, and they're inspired by them. One story that really makes me tear up every time is Katana's story. Katana's story is about how she very young girl growing up in a household and essentially experienced sexual assault through brother, grandpa, and her father. And none of the family members supported her and wanted her to hush hush. That never happened. And just seeing how much she's overcome, um, and the challenges that she faces, really, it's I can't even describe it into words. I'm just all I can say is I'm grateful for my life and for my circumstances. And there are so many the hardships out there. But for someone who is still standing and still pursuing life and trying to still navigate all the hardship, that's profound. That's resilience and that's strength.
Well, I think that giving that person a platform and able to share that story too is, I think, super important, because there's so many people that may be happening to them or has happened to them and they don't talk about it, and it is when you can share these things, it does help, and that's there's science behind that for sure, but from a personal standpoint, it is really good to share. And I think also just having other people go, okay, I'm not alone. And you talk a lot about it being like you're not alone, right? And if you have to deal with all this stuff by yourself, and you talk about you feeling like you had to do that by yourself, and then you just built this community around it. And
Right. And sometimes it can be traumatizing. And I really want to make sure that I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to share their story.
mm,
And that's where healing happens. That's not the case here. We have to determine that for ourselves, whether or not we're ready to share, whether or not that's helpful. And maybe it starts from a friend or a therapist, but not everyone needs to share in order to find healing. And even with our initiative, if you haven't noticed, there's no pictures, there's no faces to these stories. And that's still, it's the stigma. We're willing to share our stories, but we're still not ready to put our faces onto this story.
you have you've won awards or been nominated for many things. I think Manitoba Future 40 finalist,
Mm-hmm.
Manitoba won 50 medals. You graduated from U of M, restaurant owner, jewelry fashion designer, philanthropist, and I think you're and definitely a storyteller. So many people who call themselves entrepreneurs, because they may own a business, and by definition, this isn't entirely correct. Entrepreneurs tend to be the risk takers, innovators, idealists, while the people that tend to take less risk and play a little safer are probably maybe driven by profit, and not necessarily a lot of money, but maybe driven more by let's make money here, are tend to be more of the business owner. Would you say you lean more to one over the other, or would you fall maybe in the middle of that spectrum?
So I used to be on the other end of the spectrum where all about impact, just impact. I have a story to share. I'm on a mission. I'm here to solve a problem, and that is to help women rise. I believe that when a woman is economically empowered, her children and her community thrive. It's it's a simple solution, right? We just need to figure out how are we going to provide opportunities for women to rise in those situations. However, I did learn through my financial statements that I need the money to make the impact. If I do want to grow and solidify our infrastructure and to build across Canada, well, Amy, you need money, and so sales is really important because the more we sell, well, if we don't sell, we don't onboard. Simple as that, right? So it's really the support of the community, the love of the community. So I would say now it's like 50-50.
I guess that is the dilemma for a true entrepreneur is and an idealist and somebody that is likes to come up with ideas is that now you have to do them, and sometimes it's like we have so many ideas and then we got to do it, and then we get into the doing and it gets overwhelming sometimes, and I know I fall into that. I realize I'm a terrible business owner.
Why do you say that?
I love coming up with the ideas. I love getting things started, but then I want someone else to go and run with it. Well, I shared that podcast about Kendra Scott with you, and you said you listened to it.
I did. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she also created craft jewelry, and it's a well-known brand. I think she's a billion-dollar company
She
now.
is. Yes.
Yeah, which is insane. But besides the obvious connection, jewelry, when listening to her story, there's a lot of parallels between her story and yours, I think.
I think so. I think I really resonated with the challenges where she started out as a hat business, as a brick and mortar, understanding it was hard for those sales. Then just being at home in one of her bedrooms, I think, right? One of her bedrooms, start to just make a few things and then decide to just sell it to, like, wholesale. And I can resonate with that right now because that's kind of where I feel like we're at too, right? We started something kind of really unexpected. It was really a small initiative, how we transpired. And now it's becoming, oh, we're in the Leaf, we're at St. Boniface, we're going to expand into Ontario and Vancouver, and we've won like accolades every year since the inception of I Am Love. Like, this is going somewhere, and I remember, like, was it you that talked about like kind of like luck and opportunity?
Yeah, that was that podcast. He actually asked that question at the end of it. Yeah.
And like, this is not luck, right? It's part of the process, and it will come to us.
And that's I call this connect the dots because and I think that's where when you kind of identify purpose in life, a lot of things start to kind of, oh, that's why that happened, right? So that's why I call it this. But I think that's too. Would you say that? And we talked about you rolling dumplings and things like that, and not that directly brought you into the jewelry brand, but would you say that there's could you look back and say, here's some dots that are connecting that at the time you probably maybe they were pointless or they weren't significant at the time?
100%. We started off with one bracelet, one style a month for the first 2 years, right? We were bootstrapping, and I started with $500. I'm going to buy some supplies. We're going to make some and then sell, and then use that money to make some and sell more, not knowing that I needed some like that secure cash flow. And that was for 2 years. Then looking at us now, we have a collection. We have earrings, we have sterling silver necklaces, we have bracelets, we have indigenous beaded earrings. Like, it's expanded. And I guess, yeah, it was like that little thought, and then we put some action into it, and then voila, like 2 years later, this is what happens.
I Am Love Project was the initiative to support women who've overcome barriers or maybe have barriers in front of them
Yeah.
today. and then jewelry became a way to support that.
Yeah, we started as a fundraising first model. So what we did is we supported a smaller local charity every month. We raised money through one bracelet style, and we had children's from grades like 3 till 6 making the bracelets in an initiative to give back and as an initiative to educate students on the importance of giving back. Since I remember this, and I always tell this story where we go into the schools and we explain to the kids, we're like, every bracelet that we make today, a charity gets $20 from it. So if you had $20 and you were to bring it to Dollarama, how many different things can you buy? They say 20. Like, correct. With the 20 items, how many people can you give it to? And they say 20. And simple math there, but you see that their faces, they light up. They understand the concept and the power of giving back through the one bracelet because they can give back to 20 other kids, whether that's pencil crayons, notebooks, whatever it may be. And they start to rush. They're like, I want to make another one. I'm going to make two so I can support 40 people. So that was the initiative of I Am Love. And then so that quickly snowballed, and we had like in conjunction with that, we hosted like a pop-up yoga at a different venue every month with like a workshop where we talked about spirituality or trauma, relationships, that kind of stuff. And that came to a screeching halt during COVID. That's when I had to pivot. And what did that look like? And it came back to my original mission, which was supporting women, mental health, folks with substance use and disabilities, women who have been incarcerated. So it was like full circle. But I was too afraid to talk about it back then. And so I didn't start off like that. I started off really gently about giving back and giving back to organizations that work with folks rather than talking about my story and truly the why behind my story.
Maybe you can explain more about the charity components that you support. You don't just, there's more than just giving dollars.
Right in the beginning, so we would give dollars. I mean, I donated my time into different initiatives. So, uh, teaching kids yoga or supporting different runs, or we would give back like the money or some of our products for their swag bags. We were really, really involved, and we did something called the power of a dollar, where we're asking for every Winnipegger to donate $1, and like, what is the impact there? Let's do the calculations. It's that easy if you think about it. If we took $1 out of our paychecks every month, like say the CRA did that, my goodness, we would be rich. Charities would not have to ask for money. $1 a paycheck, you would not even notice that. And that was kind of like the point that I was trying to prove. And then we had something called Love for the Holidays, where we got donations of food, warm drinks, gifts, sanitary products. And we had over 300 volunteers the week of Christmas, where we donated to folks who were homeless. So there's a lot of community engagement, involvement through I Am Love.
A lot of women that come in, they make the jewelry, they produce the jewelry.
Right. So 60% is handmade, 40% is imported for assembly to ensure that we have healthy profit margins. Because I tried where it was 100% handmade. I'm like, oh my goodness, we cannot survive like this. Because I believe in living wages, and that's the intent. So that's kind of like our balance: 60% handmade, 40%. So to answer your question, no, it is not completely 100%. We need that hybrid to be sustainable.
I did have a question on that was using their hands, they're creating something. What impact does that have on that individual? Because working with your hands and making something, there's something to that.
Mindfulness practice where it takes their mind off of the day-to-day responsibilities or life. But I can't speak for them, but I do think that there's an impact. It looks different for everyone. And so that's another thing that we're dabbling into, is strengthening that onboarding and offboarding process. And how do we gather the qualitative and quantitative data of the impact we've had on the women we supported. And it ties back into your question, like, what is the therapeutic part about that? Do we measure happiness or do we measure wellness? And how can that be measured through fulfilling work through this?
Well, I guess you can, in when you can see somebody, they're proud that I made this, right? It's probably pretty exciting.
100%. And that's where the confidence builds in. This is where, when you recognize someone's strengths, they're like, oh, I'm good at something. I can do something, and erase some of the stories that they've had in the past where, hey, you're not good enough. You can't do that. Or that doesn't look, all the negative connotation and then the negative like talk. This is where we come in and be like, no, we you can do this. We had this an indigenous lady that worked for us, and she made these fantastic earrings. And I'm like, okay, well, how much do you want to get paid for it? How much do we want to retail for it? And she said $30. I'm like, okay, how long did it take you to make them? Then she said about 2.5 hours. And like, that's $15 or less than $15 an hour. And does that include your supplies? Like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't want to sell them for too expensive, because then no one's gonna buy them and we're gonna sit on product. And we're like, okay, let's recalculate this. So anyways, I'm gonna cut through the middle part, but we eventually ended up selling them for $55, and they sold out. And the lesson here was, she felt good. She had that, oh wow, like, my jewelry, people bought it even for the $55, where I thought I was only worth $30. And it propelled her to make more and value a place, like value herself that much more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a tangible product, but what it probably did personally for her was probably that intangible benefit was greater than monetary value. I would think, right?
100%. And this is the stuff that, this is why we need to create safe spaces and opportunities for folks to feel valued, heard, and seen, and truly take a different approach in the workplace on how we treat employees, right? And this is where people can flourish. People can be like, oh, yes, increase productivity. That's how you do it.
And also, I guess it's not everybody works the same, not everybody learns the same,
Mhm.
and I think there is this. Okay, here's our structure, and everyone has to follow in that. And what we're kind of losing in that process, somebody who really doesn't fit in that mold might be a really great asset, but they're not given that opportunity. But was there something that was really unexpected through this journey and really surprised you?
2022, when we were nationally recognized through Canada's Post Tales and Triumph um, Award, being the doing good business across Canada. That was very, it made us feel heard for sure. And it really solidified the work that we're doing, and where someone values our storytelling, someone values the importance of supporting women and creating opportunities for women in the workplace. That was a truly phenomenal experience. I just finished doing this survey for them, and it validated my mission. I'm like, because I always question myself. I'm like, oh, are we doing the right thing? I don't know. Am I telling it properly? And they believed in us, right? And to be across Canada, I had like my face on billboards, newspapers, on bus shelters. It was an aha moment for me, and it made me want to do more, and it made me want to do better and figure it out, regardless of how difficult it is.
Are there times when you are like, This is too much. But then you get these little moments, like you just explained, where it keeps you going, and it's like, okay, it's almost like refilling the tank.
I would say every day I get the feeling. Every day. I think the most challenging part for me was balancing the finances, being within my integrity and staying within our values in terms of living wages, supporting women. It's a lot, and we do a lot of kind of peer support to the folks that we serve, to the women that we serve. So I'm like, where do we get that money back? Like behind the scenes, we're constantly doing different things and supporting our staff, making sure that, oh, they have the resources that they need to be able to complete their job. So the giving up notion is a constant battle for me. But where it stops is when I go back to the inception of I Am Love. And I think back, like, wow, every single year we've received an accolade that is commending us for the work that we're doing and our mission. And I think that speaks to me in those downtimes where the community needs this. Women are reaching out, your inbox is full. We do need support, we do need help. So, Amy, you've got to figure this out regardless of how challenging it is. And it does work out. It works out every month, and we are still here after, well, we're coming into our 6th year, and it only gets better here.
I know we did talk about ILM Project, but where are you today, and where do you see the company going?
Well, I don't know if I shared this, but so our mission is to empower and give employment opportunities to women in need of support so they can build healthy pathways to a better future, rise from poverty, create community, and increase their inclusion in society. And I mentioned this where when a woman is economically empowered, her children and her community thrive. Are we there yet today? No. So that is, we follow this mission, and I hope to achieve that one day through building a really solid infrastructure in Winnipeg where this model of social enterprise can be replicated across Canada, where everyone can start feeling supported and start building that confidence where they go back into the workplace and be part of community. What that looks like, I'm not sure. We're going to get there.
And you also do networking events?
Sometimes, have not in a while. Maybe some coming up. We trying to get back into the community and start engaging with folks in person. So we do have quarterly events that will take place soon. The first one will be in March.
And so if somebody wanted to learn more about I Am Love Project, buy your jewelry, where can they find you both online and purchase or support?
Yeah, I am loveproject.ca or different retailers, which is on our website. Follow us on social for more details. But I must say, we try to create different things for every retailer. So what you see at the Forks is going to be different from what you see at the Leaf to get our customers curious about our products and different storytelling. But where you can find our whole collection would be I Am Love, excluding the custom stuff that we do for our retailers.
I think you can find those at Made Here as well. I'll plug that because my wife.
Yes, they're all on the website, definitely. Right
Don't be
here.
mad if I did it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
Oh my goodness.
so I want to ask this. So success. This can mean different things to different people, and that definition can change for people throughout their life. What is success to you now, and is that different from the Amy's definition 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Success would be where I'm at now because that's where I want it to be 5 years ago. And I was able to do it. I was able to plant a seed to what it is today. I would say professionally and personally, everything that I've been writing on my journal, I'm like, I can check off. This is what I was looking for. I wanted a new job, or I wanted new marketing. I want it to support more women. I want it to be out in the community. I want us to have that impact in Manitoba. And I feel like we've achieved that. And that's success to me.
Thank you for listening to this episode with Amy Tung from I Am Love Project. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and share it with as many people as you can. The more we can tell these stories, the better. Join us next week as we interview Monica and Leanne from Flow, a design and social media company here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This episode is full of energy, so do not miss it. You can find us at joinconnect.com and on social at joinconnect and pop.collab.
This podcast is proudly supported by CJNU, Winnipeg's community radio station. If you love to shop local and support local, why not listen local too? CJNU is a volunteer-powered, nonprofit cooperative. We exist to support fellow nonprofits, charities, arts and cultural organizations, and small local businesses, like the ones being profiled on this podcast. We accentuate the positive by shining a light on the good things happening in our city and province. And we play timeless classics from legendary artists, featuring some of the greatest music ever recorded in pop, rock, jazz, and more. Head to cjnu.ca to learn more, or listen live. Ask your smart speaker to play CJNU, or tune your radio to 93.7 FM in Winnipeg. CJNU, in tune with our community.